Today I am free, but not long ago my life was a nightmare. I was being manipulated by something invisible, something I couldn't see, but could feel, a force that tormented me during the night, suffocating me and making me believe that I was lost. For a long time I didn't know what these attacks were. Until I converted to Islam, I discovered that everything I had been experiencing had a name, jinns. And it was Ruqyah, the powerful recitation of the Quran, that brought true liberation into my life. But the most surprising thing wasn't just the relief, it was how my soul was healed and transformed in a single moment of faith. My name is Ishan Kumar. I am 35 years old, and I am from India. I grew up in a Hindu family, where rituals, altars, and religious celebrations were the foundation of our life. But no matter how much I followed all these traditions, I felt an internal disconnection, as if I were lost, not knowing which path to follow. Before continuing with my testimony, I want to know, where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and share, because I want to know how far my story is reaching. My childhood was surrounded by devotion and Hindu rituals. From an early age, I was taught to worship the gods, offer daily prayers, and participate in religious festivals that were at the center of our family life. At home, the altars were always present, and my father, a deeply devoted man, helped build temples and organize ceremonies. I followed all of this with zeal, as was expected, but at the same time, something inside me always felt incomplete. The daily prayers, the rituals, and the altars couldn't fill the void I carried. No matter how many gods I worshipped, there was always a sense of disconnection and lack of inner peace. Even immersed in all of this, I began to question the real meaning of it all. Why did life seem like a repetitive cycle of prayers and celebrations that never gave me the true sense of purpose? The peace promised by faith never seemed to come. I felt I was doing everything the right way, but still there was a sense of restlessness, as if something was missing, something I couldn't understand. It was this emptiness that led me to question everything I had believed in until then, and to seek something more, something that could finally bring the peace I longed for. As I grew older, religious festivals and celebrations became the most anticipated moments of the year. They were filled with brightness and glamour, full of food, music, dances, and an atmosphere of unity with family and friends. The energy of the celebrations enveloped me, and I gave myself over to the spirit of the party. The streets would light up with thousands of lights, and the aroma of traditional foods would fill the air. I found myself enthusiastically participating in all of it, but something inside me remained unsettled. The festivals seemed to offer something temporary, a fleeting joy, but after each celebration the emptiness returned. I realized that, as wonderful as the festivals were, they didn't bring me a true spiritual connection. The ritual of worshipping the gods during these events had become a formality, something I did without deeply reflecting on the meaning behind each gesture. I began to notice that, while everyone was caught up in the celebrations, no one was truly reflecting on what it meant. The offerings, the chants, the dances seemed more focused on fulfilling external expectations and keeping traditions alive than on providing an authentic spiritual experience. When I looked at the people around me, it seemed that everyone was seeking the same thing, a sense of belonging and momentary happiness. But deep down, something told me that this wasn't enough. The traditions, however beautiful, didn't fill my soul in a lasting way. Something was missing. Even surrounded by people and celebrations, I felt alone, as if I were searching for a deeper truth that couldn't be found in this world of appearances. The superficiality of faith started to become more evident to me. I saw the same people at the festivals, year after year, performing the same rituals, but no one seemed to really change or evolve spiritually. Everything repeated itself, without any real transformation in the hearts of the people. I began to wonder, do all these traditions truly connect us with the divine? Or are we just trapped in an endless cycle of empty rituals that have no impact on our inner being? It was during this time of reflection that I started to understand that the festivals, however beautiful, were only the surface. The true connection with God, which I so longed for, wasn't in the external celebrations, but in a deeper search for something truer. And it was this search, this dissatisfaction with the emptiness of traditions, that led me to question everything I knew and seek something that would finally bring the peace I was looking for. During my teenage years, I felt a deep spiritual curiosity that led me to explore Christianity. I attended a Christian school where I participated in mass and prayer sessions. I was fascinated by the idea of a personal God, one who was accessible, approachable, and loving. This concept of a God who cared about each individual seemed like a breath of fresh air compared to the rituals and idols I had grown up with. I began to embrace the prayers and the community spirit at church, trying to connect on a deeper level with the faith. Yet despite the comfort I felt in the Christian teachings, I still sensed a gap inside of me, a void that remained unfilled. The peace I was looking for seemed to elude me. While the Christian faith offered love and salvation, it didn't provide the sense of fulfillment and inner peace I was desperately seeking. It was as though I was standing on the edge of something great, but unable to cross into the fullness of faith. I realized that, even within Christianity, I was still searching for something more, something that would truly give me the spiritual peace I so desperately needed. It felt like I was in constant motion, trying to find the final answer, but never fully understanding or feeling at home in the faith. My perception of Islam was heavily influenced by the Islamophobia present in my society. Growing up in India, the media often portrayed Muslims in a negative light. I associated Muslims with violence, extremism, and terrorism, largely due to the stereotypes perpetuated by films and news outlets. This fear was something I carried with me, even though I had never personally interacted with a Muslim. The image of Muslims, especially those with beards and wearing traditional attire, created a mental barrier that made it difficult for me to see beyond these negative stereotypes. Islam to me seemed distant and even frightening. I never imagined that I could find anything of value in the religion. I associated it with conflict and fear rather than peace or spirituality. It was a faith I had been taught to avoid, a religion I had been told was dangerous and foreign. As much as I wanted to find peace, Islam seemed like the last place I would ever go. I resisted the idea of even understanding it because of the deep-rooted prejudice I had been raised with. But little did I know, this very faith would one day hold the key to my spiritual liberation, something I never thought was possible. My first real encounter with Islam was nothing like I had expected. I had heard about it, seen it portrayed in the media, and had a preconceived notion of what it was supposed to be. But when I met a few Muslims at university, something within me shifted. Although I saw a deep and sincere faith in them, there was still a part of me that resisted. They prayed 5 times a day, a routine that seemed so foreign and different from the rituals I had known growing up as a Hindu. The idea of submitting to a single unseen God was a concept that felt so alien to me, and I couldn't help but feel conflicted. I watched them in awe as they prayed, their movements so synchronized and full of devotion. The peace they exuded was unlike anything I had ever seen in anyone else. Despite the discomfort I felt, I couldn't ignore the sincerity in their worship. There was something genuine in their devotion to Allah, something that made me question my own beliefs. In the Hindu tradition, there were many gods, idols, and complex rituals, but here I saw something stripped down to its core, a direct relationship with the divine. It was unsettling but also intriguing. The discomfort was not born out of any negative feeling towards them, but rather from the stark contrast between their faith and mine. They spoke of their belief in Allah as the one true God, and their submission to Him felt so different from the concept of the divine I had grown up with. It felt unfamiliar, yet there was something deeply profound in their practices that I couldn't dismiss. I found myself torn. On one hand, I felt a growing respect for their devotion and the peace they had, but on the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that their way of worship was somehow outside of my comfort zone. I couldn't yet understand what they had found, but I knew there was something deeply meaningful about their connection with Allah. This moment of confusion, though uncomfortable, planted the seeds for a deeper search, one that would ultimately lead me to explore Islam further, unraveling its truths, and eventually finding the peace that had always eluded me. Until that point in my life, I had been plagued by experiences I couldn't explain. I would often feel strange, unsettling presences around me, especially at night. There were times when I would wake up gasping for breath, as if something was suffocating me. Though I couldn't see or touch anything, these sensations were so intense that they left me paralyzed with fear, yet I couldn't make sense of them. I heard faint voices whispering in the darkness, and I occasionally saw shadowy figures at the edges of my vision, but whenever I tried to focus on them, they would disappear. It was as if something or someone was trying to get my attention, to disturb my peace, but I had no understanding of what was happening. At the time, I attributed these experiences to stress, or perhaps vivid dreams, but deep down, I knew it was something more. The fear and discomfort that came with these encounters were real, and it started to wear me down. No matter how hard I tried to rationalize it, I could not escape the feeling that something invisible was affecting my life. This constant state of unease took a toll on my mental and emotional well-being. It was as though I was fighting an invisible enemy that I could neither see nor understand. It wasn't until I converted to Islam that I began to learn about the jinns, spiritual beings mentioned in the Quran. When I heard about them, everything started to fall into place. In Islam, jinns are believed to be entities created from smokeless fire, with free will, just like humans. They can be good, neutral, or malicious. I realized that the strange feelings, the suffocating sensations, the voices, and even the shadowy figures I had experienced were all likely caused by these beings, jinns. Growing up in Hinduism, I had never encountered any explanation like this. While there were spirits and deities mentioned in my religious background, the idea of jinns, as described in the Quran, was entirely new. It was a completely different concept that explained my experiences in a way I had never considered before. I learned that jinns can influence human lives, sometimes negatively, by causing distress, illness, and confusion. The realization that my struggles were linked to spiritual beings, rather than just random, unexplained phenomena, brought me a sense of clarity and fear. I had been living in a state of vulnerability, unaware that these entities could impact my life so deeply. But this new understanding also brought hope. Islam offered the tools and knowledge to protect myself from such forces. With this newfound awareness, I began to recite Ruqyah, the Quranic verses used for protection and healing, and felt a powerful sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Looking back, I now understand that these experiences were a spiritual battle, one that I was unknowingly fighting for years. The moment I embraced Islam, I gained the understanding and spiritual tools to finally break free from the influence of the jinns and regain control over my life. When I converted to Islam, I was introduced to the practice of Ruqyah, the recitation of Quranic verses for protection and healing. At first, I didn't fully grasp the significance of this practice, but as I delved deeper into it, I began to understand how powerful it truly was. It was through Ruqyah that I came to realize the root cause of my spiritual anguish, the presence of evil jinns in my life. I had always been haunted by feelings of suffocation, strange sensations, and an overwhelming sense of darkness, but I never understood what they were. I now understood that these disturbances were the work of malevolent spiritual beings, jinns, and that I had unknowingly been vulnerable to their influence for years. I started regularly reciting the verses of the Quran that protect against the evil eye, the jinns, and other malevolent forces. The more I recited, the more I felt the weight of fear and discomfort lift from my life. The suffocating sensations that once overwhelmed me began to fade away. The presence of something dark and oppressive that had lingered in my home disappeared, leaving a peaceful calm in its place. With each prayer, I felt a stronger connection to Allah. The more I submitted myself to His will, the more peace I experienced, a peace I had been searching for my whole life. The power of Ruqyah was unlike anything I had ever known. It wasn't just a ritual, it was a direct link to divine protection. I felt the presence of Allah surrounding me, guarding me from the forces that had tormented me for so long. The peace I had so desperately sought was finally within my reach. I no longer felt alone in the struggle, and for the first time I felt truly safe and protected. Islam had given me the spiritual tools I needed to combat the dark forces in my life, and with Allah's mercy, I found the peace I had longed for. My conversion to Islam was not merely a change in religion, it was a profound transformation that altered the course of my life. Before Islam, I had always felt disconnected from true spiritual peace, constantly seeking it in fleeting moments of joy, rituals, and material possessions. Even in my exploration of Hinduism and Christianity, I couldn't find the lasting peace that I so desperately needed. But when I embraced Islam, everything shifted. I began to experience a peace that transcended anything I had ever encountered before. Learning about the purity of Islamic faith and the protection it offers against evil brought me a sense of relief I had never felt. I realized that the spiritual turmoil I had been living through was caused by the jinns and the negative spiritual forces around me. What I didn't understand at the time was that these forces were not just external disturbances, but reflections of a deeper disconnect from the truth. Islam gave me the tools to understand the unseen world, and with that knowledge, I could protect myself from the harm of jinns and other malevolent forces. The peace I experienced came from the simple yet profound act of submitting to the will of Allah. In Islam, there is no intermediary between a person and their creator, just a direct personal relationship with the one true God. This understanding was liberating. The more I practiced my faith, the more I felt the oppressive weight of fear, doubt, and confusion lift from my heart. The peace that I had been searching for, a peace that no ritual or tradition had ever brought me, arrived when I surrendered fully to Allah's guidance. I can now look back on my journey and see that the answers I was seeking were always in front of me, waiting to be discovered. Islam gave me the clarity I needed to understand the spiritual struggles I had faced, and most importantly, it gave me the peace I had always longed for. It wasn't just the removal of external forces like jinns, but the inner peace that comes with true submission to Allah, a peace that no other belief or practice could offer me. In Islam, I found my spiritual home, and for the first time in my life, I felt complete. Looking back now, I realized that my search for the truth was long and filled with doubts. I wandered from belief to belief, searching for something to fill the void in my heart, yet nothing seemed to provide the answers I was desperately seeking. I felt lost, as though I was searching in the dark for a light that was always just out of reach. But when I embraced Islam, everything changed. I found peace, a deep, lasting peace that I had longed for, but never truly understood. The struggles that once dominated my life, like the tormenting presence of the jinns, were driven away by the power of my faith in Allah. In Islam, I discovered the spiritual tools I had always needed, but never knew how to access. I learned that through seeking refuge in Allah, the fears and forces that once overwhelmed me could be overcome. Ruqyah, the recitation of Quranic verses for protection, became my shield against the negative forces that had been influencing my life for so long. The more I immersed myself in my faith, the more I felt the grip of the jinns and other spiritual struggles loosen. The protection I sought had always been available, but I had to open my heart to receive it. Islam brought clarity to the confusion I had felt for years. It taught me that the true source of peace is not in material possessions or external rituals, but in a direct, personal connection with Allah. The faith gave me strength and confidence to face life's challenges, knowing that I was never alone, and that Allah's guidance would always be there to help me overcome any adversity. My spiritual liberation did not happen overnight, but it has been a continuous process of growth and healing. As I look at where I am now, at peace with myself and my faith, I am thankful for the guidance that Islam has provided. It is through this faith that I was able to heal my soul and free myself from the chains of fear, doubt, and confusion that had held me captive for so long. If you too are struggling against invisible forces, feeling lost or confused about what is happening in your life, know that there is hope. The protection of Allah is real, and it is available to everyone who seeks refuge in Him. You don't have to face these struggles alone. Allah's mercy and guidance are waiting for you to embrace them. I encourage you to share this video with anyone who may be facing the same spiritual battles. There are countless people out there who might be struggling in silence, unaware that the peace they seek is closer than they think. If my story has touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel and continue following for more stories of faith and transformation. Together, let's spread hope and share the light of truth. May Allah guide us all on the path to true peace.